And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. Happy Friday, everyone. Today,
We're doing this live now? What are
Yeah,
you
welcome
talking
back.
about?
Josh,
I
don't make
thought
me
that
talk
was
to
just
you.
a one-time thing.
Uncensored, unedited Josh.
Good.
Unfiltered Josh. So we actually get unfiltered Josh 3 times a week, even if you didn't know that. So we're getting coming to you live, Josh, Erica, Tom, today on this lovely Friday.
Who doesn't love the Lucas though? Hey, actually, I'll tell you what. I got a review here.
A
Little
paper review?
Paper
In
review.
paper?
Old school.
Wow, that's old.
You know,
Yeah,
we
man.
get a lot of. I have a lot of fans, and Erica has even more. And the thing is, these fans they love to talk about the program. That they learn a lot. They enjoy it. They laugh. They cry. They share it with their friends. However, sometimes we don't get 5 stars. I thought I'd share this with you guys. Nebraska Nikki.
Is this an
Now,
ambush?
She totally
It
admits
is. Yeah.
good info. Good info. She says that right from the top. Well, that's true. We work so hard to make sure we get great information here.
We do.
We come to you with solid facts and statistics, how to live your life in the world today that's kind of crazy. Nebraska Nikki, good info. This is her review. Good info, but I hate. Uh-oh.
That's a strong word.
Yikes. I think she's got a problem with how some of us interact with each other. Here we go. Good info, but I hate when Tom talks to Josh like he's his dad. Only got 3 stars out of that one. So something to work on there, Tommy.
I
But
think
hey,
Josh likes that review.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's Friday, so why
I don't
don't
know
we
what to
just
say.
keep this rolling? I got more feedback. Are you ready for this?
No,
How do you
Josh,
I don't
play
know.
room.
I don't know if I'm ready.
Tell Josh Mercer that my wife and I appreciated his talk he gave a few weeks ago in Mequon, Wisconsin for the priest dinner by the Knights, Dave and Vicky Breidenbach. So, lots
there's
of
some
love
love.
for the program, lots of love for Mercer, which I like. I've listened to him. He's pretty good on this show. So just wanted to share that with everyone else there. Tom's got some homework.
It's kind of certifiably crazy to leave a 3-star review. Have you ever thought about how wild that
No,
is?
it's
Like,
not crazy. We can't. Come on.
The
We
people
want
that
honesty
leave-
here.
Most of the time, it's a 5-star review or a 1-star review. The fact that it was a
Yeah.
3-star review, I could really tell she was conflicted. She appreciates a lot about the show, but
She obviously likes Josh, that guy.
Loves
And I
Josh.
like him too.
In fairness.
I'm a fan.
so
She's in
yes.
defense of Josh.
Not to out myself, I'm 26 years old, and there's no physical way I could be Josh's father or try to act like it. So I apologize in advance if I ever told you to go to your room
Okay, but
or keep your
No
room
apologies.
tidy.
here's the
No
pronoun
apologies, Pogo.
confusion. Here's the pronoun confusion. Tom talks to him like he's his father. Which part is the he? Are you talking to me like you're my dad, or are you talking to me like I'm your father? And you
Oh,
knowing me?
interesting. I didn't think about that. angle.
Okay, so think
That's
it through.
possible.
It's a little pronoun ambiguity here.
You
It
know,
sounds like you guys have some relationship.
So if you're
building
listening,
together.
Nebraska
we need to
Nikki,
do some
Podcast.
therapy, I think.
we're
Yeah.
interested. We're going to find
Yeah.
out.
So actually, then maybe we should pass a bipartisan law outlawing reviews that say that, or actually, let's just outlaw all reviews that are negative.
That's
Republicans
sort of
and
like
Democrats
the
can get behind that.
Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So to transition, truly, Republicans continue to amaze me at how they just can steal victory right out of the jaws of.
Defeat out of the
themselves.
jaws of victory, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Tom,
So
you're just like my wife. You take the idiom and you totally butcher it.
I mean, my how the turntables. So
Yeah.
You
Guys, we're
had
looking at
you had that idiom, that analogy right at your fingertips, and then
similar to victory. So what was happening here, and this is why I title it this way. This is a total trap. So Republicans or pro rule of law people were handed a complete victory by leftist Ivy League campuses descending into complete chaos, in which laws were disregarded and buildings were vandalized and people were threatened with violence. Right, seemingly all cooked in a lab over the last 20, 30 years of teaching people to hate America and hate the West. And it's all kind of coming to fruition, right? At an election year where one candidate is clearly pretty pro rule of law and the other one hasn't been great on that. And so instead of just taking the win here and saying, okay, enforce campus laws, a Republican brought forward a bill. This bill would be called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And so the act seeks to define anti-Semitism. The definition, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Now, look, I love my Jewish brothers and sisters. I don't think anyone should face violence or threats or anything like that. However, I am an American and I'm very pro free speech. Now, I see quite a few problems with this bill, chief among them being that the definition of anti-Semitism is increasingly broad. And anytime I see the word bipartisan next to a bill, I get very nervous.
Ooh, red flag.
So the people that would get to determine this definition would be the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And they would be the people saying this is anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic. So just a little bit of background on this organization. The IHRA is an international governmental organization founded by Sweden. It's comprised of partners in the EU and UN, including Israel. So Israel themselves would get to set this definition, which is already pretty wild. This would essentially grant foreign governments and organizations control over American speech. Now, any red-blooded American that believes in our Constitution and the First Amendment should be furious over this. Even the thought that international actors could police our speech. And I think this kind of gets into deeper like frustrations with the World Economic Forum and like a one world government type thing. Like that really bothers me already. And it definitely smells like that. But just to think that other countries could determine what we can and can't say is unbelievable. I mean, we started a revolution over taxes. So moving on, the actual definition. So if you go to the website, and this is pretty revealing, they go through some of their definitions already, the IHRA, including, and this was the one that really jumped out the page, accusing Jews of killing Jesus is considered anti-Semitic, according to this law, which I've read the Bible, okay? It wasn't the Romans. The Jews were the ones that put him up for death.
It was me. Let's just be real.
It was our sins.
Like,
if you
come
really
on.
want to get specific.
Yeah, let's be real.
I mean,
Okay, but anyway, that's kind of crazy that you'd be able to be criminalized over this.
you could have gone with
Yeah.
the full Mel Gibson and said it wasn't the Swedish.
Yeah,
Right.
regardless of, I mean, the headline obviously is Republicans move to censor the Bible. So that's the sensationalist, like, oh my gosh, this is happening. But I think you're putting your finger on it, Tom, that the real issue here, there are two issues. One is the definition of anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic speech is so vague that it's a certain perception of Jews, and it doesn't define the perception. And it may be expressed as hatred. It may not be expressed as hatred. The people may be Jews. They may be Hebrews. It's so vague that here's the second problem. It leads you right into it. It delegates the responsibility for enforcing the law to unelected boards of people who have a vested interest in interpreting it in a certain way. And that's the International Holocaust Remembrance. And the issue
I'd be mad
here,
if it was
again,
our own government.
yeah,
But it's another level
Right.
of crazy. It's not even our
Right.
own government deciding who can say what and who can't say what. It's other countries. It's Israel themselves would be deciding
Right.
what we can and can't say, which is insane.
Exactly. And I hate to say that, like, I'm in agreement with Jerry Nadler. This is like, this is true
And the
Twilight Zone.
ACLU.
Erica is on board with the ACLU.
Yeah.
He said that speech that is critical of Israel alone does not constitute unlawful discrimination. And then he went on, much of this activity, whether you agree with the sentiments expressed at these protests or not, constitutes legally protected speech. And we can get into when do the protesters at these universities cross the line between free speech and violating laws that keep other people safe. There's definitely lines that have been crossed. And I know we're going to get into some of the crazier aspects of these protests in a minute. But at the same time, this law is a step towards the hate speech laws that we're seeing in Canada, that we're seeing in the UK. They're being used to bludgeon Judeo-Christian conservatives. And that's the scary part here. And like you said, all the Republicans had to do was shut up and sit on their hands and just watch the left burn itself, and win, but they just couldn't.
Can't help themselves.
Case in point, the Republican who introduced this bill is from New York. So a little bit of rhino going on there, I think.
Yeah, and I mean,
New York Republicans.
I don't think it has much of a chance in the Senate. It's going to be received on May 2nd. But even if you just look at the House, I mean, it's so embarrassing how many people voted for this as Americans. It's 320 to 91. 70 Democrats and 21 Republicans say no. Chip Roy being chief among them.
Chip Roy was great.
The margins are big enough that you worry that this will pass the Senate because you might not have enough to filibuster it. It's garbage too. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, if someone came up to me and said, "I hate you Catholics. I wish everyone who believed in the Pope would leave the country. I mean, I would say, man, this guy's
I think
full of
they do
hate.
say that.
Yeah,
Yep.
don't
What a
like this
jerk,
dude, but
but like that's not illegal. I'm sorry. And if someone says, I want to kill you, well, that's actually not just speech, that's threatening to commit a crime, and that's already against the law. So I don't understand why there's any need for an additional law here. It doesn't make any sense to
Exactly.
me.
Just enforce
Unless
the
you
law
want to
we
use it
have.
for nefarious reasons, unless you want to give the federal government more power. And the fact is, we've already seen what the federal government's done with speech, using social media companies to squash the First Amendment free speech rights of Americans, to say what they want to say. Now, like, don't talk about COVID in that way. Don't talk about, the vaccine that way. All these things that you're not
Black
allowed
Hole
to
Theory.
say. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't refer to Caitlyn Jenner as a man. You can't talk like that.
yeah.
Or
So
if you
there's
mention abortion
we
on your
we've
podcast,
already
we're going to
seen
flag
an
you. Yeah.
erosion of free speech in the last few years, and our own federal government and our law enforcement agencies, taking part in this squashing of our free speech. So yeah, actually, you know what? No, go pound sand. I'm not going to vote for any other legislation, even if it sounds good. I'm not going to support it. I don't trust you guys. Screw you.
That was the most American response.
Well, there we
Love
go.
that. So yeah, Matt Walsh was great on this, and I think it's worth bringing up, even though it's so obvious. And we all lived through this during 2020. I'm glad you brought up COVID, but that was like the greatest time of speech censorship I've ever lived through. But when you police speech about a specific group of people, what does that project about that group of people? Like if you say you cannot criticize this specific group of people, of course that's going to lead people to start thinking, well, why can't I say this? Why can't you say this? And of course, that just leads to more people coming up with theories or reasons to try to explain why you cannot talk about these people. It totally reminds me of COVID. It's like, why should I trust the COVID people when I can't even talk about the fact that there was a lab devoted to coronavirus research in Wuhan, and you're telling me that I cannot even say that it's possible it came from this lab? I had to say someone ate a bat, I guess.
Yeah, I think
Like, it's
that
crazy.
points. I think that points to the lie that was the Biden's campaign platform that he was going to in 2020, that he's going to bring the country together. But what you're pointing out is these kinds of measures where it's like this group is protected and that group's protected and this is a victim group, and that's it. It does exactly the opposite, and it further divides us, rightly or wrongly. It causes us to speculate about, ooh, that other group that I don't belong to. And then you end up with this, it's extreme identity politics, which will only further fracture the country, leading to more reliance on just a vast power from the centralized government to keep us going. And that's the end game, right? So it's Biden has not been a unifier precisely because of this kind of tactic.
No. And
Right.
Josh,
And again,
actually,
it's like one of these things where it's like, why are we getting involved in this debate when we should allow the attention to be focused on a bunch of crazy college mobsters who are taking over college campuses and going crazy? Like, don't interrupt your enemy when they're committing self-destruction, bro. Like, this is the dumbest.
Art of War 101.
so Josh, can I ask you then from a political and historical perspective? When you hear the word bipartisan, typically people see that as cooperation and a good thing, but that makes me nervous. Could you give some perspective there on when you see that bipartisan word thrown around? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, there are several times in the last 30 years where things have been done in a bipartisan manner. It's usually spending money, and starting wars. And I'm just I'm not excited. Anytime we hear the word bipartisan, I'm always reaching for my wallet, realizing there goes some more of my money or my rights, in this case. So it's like, it's not like you have 300, 400 members of Congress thinking, how can we work together to make sure people in this country can exercise more freedom and spend more of their own money? Anytime they're working together, it's when the Democrats have finally hoodwinked Republicans into saying, okay, if we throw you enough money for bombs and stuff, will you let us have more money for welfare bumps? That's like, gosh.
Right, there's back scratching going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely horrible.
So, and we now move into we've been covering these protests and they just continue to make
They
me
just
laugh.
keep going.
But you kind of Eric, you brought this up, and I've been trying to think about the right way to put this without using the word theater kids, because that's triggered a few people in the audience, I guess. These protesters are fake revolutionaries that benefit from their rights as an American, but they're like, they pretend they don't exist, or they're railing against the system. But then when they get in trouble, they fall back upon the rights or the police or whatever. Like the example of the protesters that were like railing against the police, saying they were part of this colonialist institution, but then simultaneously complaining when they were being attacked for illegally occupying campus, saying that the police did nothing. So like, there's just this weird, I do not understand. I need a better way to put a finger on what is going on here, but I don't know. Do you have any thoughts towards that? Or like, what has possibly consumed these college campuses?
I have thoughts. I mean, this is typical toddler tantrum tactics. That's what's going on here. This is my 4-year-old child throwing a fit against mom because mom said something, and simultaneously her entire life hinges on the benefit of having parents who love her. And not that I want to compare the state to loving parents, but it is this weird inability to handle anything without the help of the man, and simultaneously being like, I'm going to stick it to the man. So I love, these people, these kids out in front of UCLA, the one night this week, they publish a statement calling for the defunding of the police. And then the next morning, 4 of them get up there completely masked, all covered in their, kerchiefs. And they're saying, we were attacked by Zionists, which really just some Jewish students walked by and yelled at them. And we screamed for help and no one came. So yeah, I mean,
in their liberated zone that they claim is free of all of these laws.
Exactly. It's not rational. And I think that part of our trouble is we're looking at this trying to analyze and understand what's going on. It's not a matter of understanding. And I think this is where you cross the line from free speech into, okay, these kids are just insane. They are clearly being manipulated, and they're puppets of, outside forces and outside. There was a story in the UK Herald this morning going through all of the charities that are funding. Like, the journalist asked the question, how was it that within 24 hours, 200 matching tents just popped up on the green at UCLA? Where did they come from? And then they had photographs of all the protest signs. There's thousands of these signs. Who paid for this? And they're going back to, I mean, these are charities, quote unquote, with ties to Hamas, with ties to George Soros, as Michael Knowles has pointed out. Yeah, exactly. So these students are in many ways victims and puppets, but I don't have a lot of, they're also Columbia students and Ivy League students.
Here's a question, though.
I don't have a lot of sympathy.
Here's what I don't understand. So Hamas, decided to, they did the strike against Israel and they captured people, right? That was on October 7th.
Yep.
So why didn't these, and then Israel responded, it wasn't that long after, though. It's not like Israel waited like half a year to respond. It was fairly, why didn't these student protesters start their encampments like right away? Oh, it's because it was January. And they don't want to be cold. They waited till it was springtime to do their encampment, and they put up their pup tents outside. Oh, I see. It's not like they're really railing. Oh, okay,
well,
guys.
Some people suggest they should just wait until summer break, because then they have to go to the Hamptons to be with their families.
Right? Although they are pledging that they will stay. They are not going anywhere.
They're sacrificing beach trips to the Hamptons for that. I mean,
they might. I mean,
if protest in the Hamptons.
I mean, with Amazon bringing you pup tents, and these Marxist communist groups bring in burritos, Uber Eats, and you can stay as long as you want, I suppose, all the way through the summer. And again, it gets to the point where you have these liberal college administrators who have never been able to say no to anybody. We are living with the experience of the participation trophy generation. I remember this stuff was not new to me. I remember growing up in the early 80s in Minneapolis suburbs, super liberal area. You think, oh, no, it's horrible. I mean, it's just super liberal. I remember playing t-ball. And every game, at the end of every game, they said, oh, tie game. My brother and I look at each other like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, crap.
And little Josh knew one
I knew a
day
kid
that
like that,
protesters
too,
would
yeah.
be
I'll tell
taking
you what
over.
we did. We kept score. And the
Yeah.
next time the coach said, oh, tie game, like, what?
Yeah,
Coach,
what are you
we
talking
won
about?
11-4. What are you talking about? Like this, we crushed them. Like,
It's
no. They try to cool us down. That kind of stuff. We
Josh,
wanna
it's like
try
that
to-
meme of the dominoes. Like the first domino was like
That's
0-0
right.
score of T-ball, and now it's like Ivy League protesters and Hamas.
Can never tell these kids no. Can never crush their feelings.
Yeah, did you see the UCLA president went to go negotiate in the liberated zone?
Oh, did he really?
That is a wild
That's
video.
such
Yeah,
a
so he goes
mistake.
in and he sits down wearing his mask amidst like the leaders of these protests, and surprisingly didn't get anywhere with these kids. And then the kids, he got up to walk away because he clearly saw it wasn't being productive, and they all shouted shame at him, like it was like the medieval treatment, like shame, shame, shame. Kicked him out of the liberated zone. It's like you don't negotiate with terrorists. Like
Right.
I learned
Hey,
that
I
a long
have an
time
idea.
ago.
Make me president of UCLA. I'll take care of business real fast.
Yeah. So I have a highlights, lowlights reel if we want to go over them here.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
One of my favorites, Chicago, in their encampment, they had a few requests to the public if they'd wish to help using social media, which is also kind of hilarious. They were requesting a few things, including Plan B, HIV tests,
Wow.
and dental dams, among other
Plan
things.
B.
In case they want to kill little babies while they're in their encampment. That's cool.
Yeah,
That is
if you
cool.
couldn't think like those encampments could get any grosser, that is also going on. And then there's also a great picture at UCLA of the aftermath of the encampment, in which they just completely trashed all this public property, tents everywhere, trash everywhere. And these are also the Save the Planet people too. These are
Right.
the
Climate change
warriors.
activists. Stop littering. Oh,
We care about the planet.
yeah. It's just
Accept everything we touch. And then my personal favorite moment was a white liberal woman finding a way to somehow make this about herself. It was a Cal Poly
As
alumni.
always.
Yeah.
yes.
Cal Poly alumni. She may have triggered a ceasefire in Gaza by burning her sociology master's degree
graduated
in
from
solidarity.
Cal Poly Humboldt in 2022 with a master's in
The
sociology.
whispering's really creepy as well.
Protesters at Cal Poly Humboldt have taken over Siemens Power.
Oh,
and
yeah,
moved
there it
into
goes.
Federal Power since
In the
April
spaghetti
22nd.
pot.
With
Just
the
like
with the
speaking
On
thing
top of
under
the
it
Kefta.
too.
Yeah.
Oh
Bunch
my
of heroes.
gosh.
The university's role in the
Wow.
occupation
That's
of
some
Palestine.
personal sacrifice
Protesters
going on
at Cal
there.
Poly Humboldt
Why does she have to
demand that the
whisper?
What?
It's like
I don't
creeping me out.
escalates by calling
I think
off
she's
police
trying to
and
sound
ensuring no
sad.
academic consequences.
She's in the woods
She's
now.
burning it in
Now
the
she's out in the
woods.
woods.
That
Wearing
the
the
universities
cap- oh,
close
man.
and divest their
Oh
financial
my gosh,
investments in the
man.
Zionist apartheid state, and that the university calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza
Got the like
and
cadence like she's
urges
gonna
other
do a
CSUs to do the same. Cal Poly Humboldt
Gregorian chant
administration
almost.
has refused negotiations and
Like
instead
sorrowful
refused to
passion. I
escalate
burned the
situation.
certificate.
So today I'm burning my diploma in solidarity with the brave protesters at Cal
Hashtag
Poly
stunning,
Humboldt and across
hashtag
the
brave.
so-called US, who are
That was a heater. And then by far, this is my absolute favorite
is-
moment of all
okay.
of these. Okay, and I don't even want to say anything before we play this video. I'll give a nice NFL play-by-play. But if we could get the Portland State video up, please. We got a sweet.
Oh, here they come. Hit.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, for the audio, Pogo, you have to describe this.
Okay.
How do you describe
Wait for the impact. Wait for the boom.
Oh,
So, Portland State University, these kids thought it'd be a good idea to charge out of the library with a garbage can cutout shield and start running at the cops to
there's
like it's like a
umbrellas, too,
phalanx.
back there.
They
I
clearly
mean-
are not classically educated because I learned how to make a phalanx, and
That's right.
this was not a very good one. It was easily
They
impenetrable.
really don't think about the Roman Empire enough. This
Oh
is
my gosh, that was the
pathetic.
funniest. So
Wow.
wearing, of course, masked up,
gas
super
ma- there's a
masked up,
gas mask.
and just
Oh,
gets
man.
wrecked by this cop. I mean, it was like the most easiest takedown probably of this guy's career because that guy probably weighed like 110 pounds soaking wet.
These kids.
But
Oh
ran
my
out of the
gosh.
library, charged the cops, and it fell apart instantly because the first guy basically fell apart on impact. And I've never laughed. I thought it was like if they remade Braveheart with a brave like lesbian director at Disney. And this would be the scene where they get fired up by the Mel Gibson character, probably with blue hair. and is probably a gender studies major, and says
Yeah,
they
different blue
can't
hairs,
take
yeah.
our freedom,
Yeah.
and then they roll out with trash can shields and just get obliterated.
Trash can shields,
So-
not like the old 1970s trash cans that are like heavy, steel.
Like
this
the
is
metal
little
circular
plastic.
lids.
bro.
Yeah, those are awesome. Yeah, these are just
Like,
plastic.
go snow sledding with those. I ain't gonna get you any favors here.
Oh my gosh, that video I've watched it 100 times. I keep watching it. And then someone put the old school like NFL films treatment on it, Josh. I don't know if you saw that one,
Steve
where they had the
Zabel, yeah.
voiceover of like misguided ambition.
Aw.
Dude, I mean, these kids, they're just cracking me up. It's so funny. And then this one, I think, interesting from like a religious perspective. So, and Wokeness Twitter account, they put up this video of all of these college kids at UCLA in the encampment doing prayers to Allah with,
Yeah.
I assume maybe one Islamic person is leading this, but how are we going to write this in the history books? Like these
Look
are
at all those
like,
women in the hijab. They're like
Right.
they're loving the oppression.
These are all the feminist, atheist, Marxist, empowerment, abortion, you name it. Like they drank the Kool-Aid of the times, are now bowing to Allah at UCLA.
Yeah, this is like herd mentality at its worst. And
I gotta
remember
admit,
from the police reports, we know that probably 50% of these people are not students, but the students just go right along with
50%
it.
of the
because-
students still doing it.
It's right. 50% are still students, and how many of them actually believe, quote unquote, in what they're doing right now in this video? Zero.
How
But
could they?
I mean,
yeah,
I
they're
have to
bowing the
say,
knee. It's like, ugh.
when I think of UCLA college girls, I did not think about people in hijabs. I admit,
No,
Yeah,
a
man.
little bit of a
what
surprise.
they're busting the stereotypes, man.
It's
They're
crazy.
changing the narrative.
If you look
That's
back at college videos, even like 20, 30 years ago, like what people looked like, I don't know if people would have imagined bowing to Allah in solidarity with the Palestinian people, but yeah. But on the flip side, we have good colleges. So highlights and lowlights. We have Benedictine College President Minnis, who we've talked about quite a bit.
I know more love for Benedict than this is.
Okay,
awesome.
I just want to throw out there, if there's any Benedictine alumni watching right now, I want merch. We got our St. Mary's merch because we dug St. Mary's for like a whole week on Loopcast last
Yes.
year. Where's
know,
the
do.
Benedictine merch?
Actually, when you say that, I got merch from Benedictine. I
Did
do.
you?
And you know
Where's-
what happened?
And you hogged
my
it?
I want
kid-
my onesie.
My kids love it so much, they wear it all the time and never get it. Like my kid was
You
just
never get
wearing
to wear
the sweatshirt last night. I'm like, good golly, people! Like, I got this nice red jacket with the raven on it and stuff like that. And
Josh, we should
my-
get the Ravens beanie for you that they have to wear for freshman
Aw.
orientation. The, like, little
Okay.
red in
It'd
the
be
back.
See,
super cute.
I know why you're saying that.
Why?
I know why you're saying it, Tom. It's the same reason my wife says, I love it when you wear a ball cap. I got a big bald head, a big. You see this in the comments. Okay, I love Nebraska Nikki for giving me some love during the comments, but a lot of times in the comments, you see that emoji of an egg, and we know what they're talking about here, okay? I get it. And my wife, I told this to my wife, she's like, they don't say that. That's terrible. That's so...
Oh, yeah, they do.
I got a thick skin. This is a thick egg. I can handle it.
The
Bring it on.
uncrackable
Oh,
egg.
man.
This ain't no Humpty Dumpty going on.
But yeah, throw us. I love Benedictine. Throw us some merch. Go Ravens.
Yeah, I want the Raven, and I do promise if you send me your Raven onesie, I will do cameo baby in Raven onesie. You can use it on all your
Oh.
marketing.
Bringing it up.
You got it.
Oh yeah, we got.
Yep,
Don't worry,
yep.
we always have some Bismarck people in the chat. What up?
Okay.
What up?
Bismarck,
Missing
hey.
Maui 5.
Hey,
What up, North
Bismarck.
Dakota? So, but anyway, if we want to talk about some of the positives here, we have Stephen Minnis, president of Benedictine College.
There's my hat.
He was leading the students and praying the rosary on their knees.
That's
He
a
has been
great
every
shot.
Wednesday. And so they talk about this Associated Press report that we covered earlier this week, kind of Catholicism in a petri dish. But I think at a time where juxtapose this picture that you see all these kids holding a rosary behind the literal president of the United States, or not United States, I wish,
You wish, yeah.
president of Benedictine College.
That'd be an
on his
upgrade.
knees, praying
Yeah.
the rosary. You got all the kids behind him doing the same. On a leadership note, this is true leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And then Benedictine College, beautiful campus, they're not in disarray and chaos right now. I mean, if anything, you see a lot of peace really exuding from that campus. I've visited, it's wonderful. But even just on a today, like look at what's happening today, and our best and brightest universities are literally taking over buildings and renaming them to like Infinita Central or something. And then you
Asking
have,
for free Plan B and dental dams.
Exactly. It is crazy. So
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to places like Benedictine College and Ave Maria University. I'll give my alma mater a shout out. I mean, this is the answer, right? If you have, because it was funny too, like I made the phalanx comment, but if you have a true classical education and you get an education steeped in the ability to do critical thinking, you're not going to fall for, I could say from personal experience, if we had weird actors coming to campus trying to say something like, what are we doing here? Like they develop independent critical thinkers that would be
That's
able
it,
to
Tom. That's
see
the
art
answer,
in it.
actually.
Right. Again, and like the liberal education, we talked about this last time, and it's so true. Liberal education makes a free man. That's the root of the word liberal, is freedom. And you look at the kids at Benedictine, you look at the kids coming out of Hillsdale, you're looking at Thomas Aquinas College, all of these great schools. They're
may.
free from this like bowing to Allah at UCLA. They know, like, if a bunch of Palestinians stormed the Christendom campus, you aren't going to suddenly see 50% of the student body come and be like, oh, this is a great idea. They're going to be like, this is ridiculous. Let's stop. They get them off. They'd have some border security going on there.
There's a funny tweet out there, 180th year in which there have been no anti-Semitic protests at Hillsdale College.
Yes, right. Going strong, 180 years, no anti-Semitic.
But Tom, you're right though. I mean, this is why they started that Great Books program at St. John's in Annapolis, Maryland, like the 1930s. It kind of began a little bit of this rebirth into like, wait a minute, we've lost touch in the Ivies. They've just become, these
prestige factories or whatever.
Yeah, the left-wing colleges. They used to be seminaries, and now they've become seminaries of a new religion, secular humanism. And so, the Great Books program at St. John's, not even a Catholic, I think it's Anglican college in Annapolis, and what they started with this idea: if you learn the great books, these great words from all these great thinkers throughout time, you're going to be liberated. That's right. That's exactly, Erica's right. The idea, that's what true liberalism is. You are liberated from the ideology and trappings of your present moment, and you can think beyond just the current culture or time period you live in. You can think and learn from the past. And you can say, well, now, wait a minute. Now, this can't be the only time anyone has ever dealt with a problem like this. Can I learn from history? Can I learn from all my different ancestors and see what they might have done when they dealt with this situation? And so if you do study the great books, if you learn from all these great thinkers from all over the world, you're not going to succumb to the lure of communism or wokeism or whatever isms there are. And the thing is, all these isms usually have some element of truth mixed in with a lot of poison. And if you have that, great books background, that classical education, then you won't fall for this.
Yeah, and you also bring up a great point too, and I think to add on it's an education in the greatest of Western tradition. And I have not seen a caricature of such a caricature of Western culture and government that has been presented by these protesters. I don't know who are feeding them this. It's the colleges. They've been teaching it for years, but to see the West and everyone in the West as their whiteness and they're the oppressors and they're dominating everyone. Like, we're talking about the people that settled America, that built the country, like the greatest of great men in the world. And I'm not saying there's not great contributions from Eastern tradition as well, but that does not take anything away from the greatness of the greatest thinkers in Western philosophical thought.
And I think you're touching on, this is the myth that is being foisted upon these young people at these schools right now, is that somehow when you say Western civilization and the Western tradition, you're being exclusive to a white heteronormative, blah, blah, all the catchphrases. That's the lie. And Anthony Eslin is so good on this. He points out that when you talk about the Western tradition, you're talking about 4,000 years of civilization, of written works, of records. You're talking about every continent being included in that Western tradition. The hallmark of Western tradition is openness to the truth wherever it arises. And that includes the Arabic world, that includes North Africa, that includes even Chinese philosophy. You read Confucius. If you're in a great books program, you read Confucius.
Or Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
Baby.
Yeah. So if anyone is at a family gathering or, talking to a leftist Catholic pal at the playground, do not let them fall into that. You call that out and you say, no, no. The Western tradition is the tradition that is the open to truth wherever it comes from. It's this wokest, like Black studies, cultural studies, women's studies. Those are the study programs that are actually exclusive and narrow-minded
And
and
invented
will
like
trap
5
you
minutes
in
ago.
yeah, it'll trap you in of this postmodern, like Josh said, nobody's ever thought of these before. So again, where's the truth? Where's the open-mindedness? And where do we see students coming out who are free thinkers in the best sense of free thinkers?
Yeah.
That's the great books and the Western studies, Western
And it's
Civ.
kind of funny that that talking about whiteness or whatever. I mean, like, look, I'm very white. I got Norwegian blood. I get it, okay. But like some of these great works of antiquity, you're studying from, the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is from like Samaria, like Iraq, right?
They
I
weren't
mean,
white people. Yeah.
I mean, like you have to understand, like the expansion of the word white. Now it's like we're all together. It's
Well,
like
the idea is
Norwegians
that they
and Italians
espoused were white.
were not. I mean, come on,
The
we don't look the
whiteness
same
adjacent.
or think the same. Yeah.
Yeah,
whiteness adjacent.
White
think-
adjacent.
I think often about like Plato's allegory of the cave. And that was transformative to me personally, like the idea that of just the man chained to the wall seeing the shadows. And like once you read stuff like that, and like I've been saying, I've been going through the Great Divorce, and I'm reading stuff like that, and I'm like, I just see that everywhere. And to imagine that I had never encountered that, which is probably the reality of like public education, Common Core, up until the point where you go to college and then you go study. You wouldn't encounter them unless you're in these kind of circles, I guess, like the Great Books curriculum or classical education, which like I was fortunate to have. But like how formative that's been to opening my eyes to what Josh said, elevating beyond the moment, because all of these thinkers lived in different times in history, much different times in history, and yet you get to put together the common threads. How shallow and short-sighted I would be if I only ever thought of my time. And maybe that's why you get people like the Gen Zs talking about how all they've ever known is strife and states of chaos in their life. And like, maybe to be fair, if you only ever thought of your time in history, yeah, you'd probably think that.
You'd feel that way, right?
Like someone always says like the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So like if you're a kid from the Hamptons, the worst thing that's happened to you is not being able to go on vacation one year. That would be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. But like, as opposed to someone who's gone through real tragedy or like real problems, that would be the worst thing. You can't know past that. And that's why like, I don't know, covering this news is, I love coming to LOOPcast and like, hopefully we're bringing a little bit of depth here with this. But like, yeah, if you were caught up in the news cycle and you never went to go replenish or you never went to go research or like go further. And I even try to call myself out on this of like, how do we go deeper? Because I think I graduated from school. You have the time in college where you're like, I don't, I read a lot in college. I had to do a lot of papers or whatever. It's like that never stops. And actually, I really admire that about both of you, but especially Erica. I feel like you've done a very good job of just, and I don't know if this is just something that has always been the case for you, but just continuing to go deeper. Like even like on your maternity leave, like taking the Hillsdale course is like, what have we been talking about here? Like I definitely
Is this
would
the
not be
nice
doing
way
that.
Well,
to be a nerd, or are we?
No,
No,
I
but
really
here's
admire
the
that.
thing. Like, we get involved, obviously, with Catholic Vote and a lot of political stuff, like what's going on in the next election or what's going on at Capitol Hill, a specific, unique, present threat or fight that we're engaged in, right? So, like, we're trying to fight against the Biden administration for gutting Title IX and how that's going to have a real impact on, college and high school girls wanting to participate in athletics. It's a real thing. And that's why. So every once in a while you get these cats like, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. No,
Yeah, I
it's
get so
messy.
depressed,
And
yeah.
people fight. It's like a food fight and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, it's not clean. It's not pristine. It can be unenjoyable at times. But the fact is we still need to fight. And they'll say, well, I don't want to be involved in politics. I want to do something like meaningful, like education. I want to support colleges like Franciscan or Benedictine or UMary or whatever. I don't want to do the political stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, actually, guess what? It's all of the above. We need to do all of these things. And that's why at Catholic Vote, I'm glad that we get involved in elections. We get involved in policy fights because I do think it's important to try to, be on the side of these young college athletes. I also think it's important to be involved in these education reforms on the high school and college levels. And that's why I'm proud of the fact that the Loop is able to celebrate places like Benedictine College and University of Mary and the Chesterton schools all across the landscape, the high schools. I'm proud of that work, and we help out, and we're not. Oh, why would you promote other people? Why don't you only? We're happy. We're
Yeah.
happy to promote all these other organizations and the work that they're doing. But it's not an either or. It's everyone has to vote, and everyone has to support these organizations that need help. So it's not a this or that. It's all of the above.
Totally. And I think,
That's
fortunately,
so Catholic. Both
it's
ends.
Catholic, and we're
Mhm.
able to, I think certain sects of Catholicism have dominated public, like the public conversation. This is an example, like in our next section here, like in Church Corner, we have like fiducia supplicans fallout. Like progressive liberal Catholics aren't ashamed to talk about politics, because I think it's a lot more, it's less risky, I guess, or like they
It's
get
natural. Everyone on the left, politics is their religion, so it's
yeah,
easy.
totally. So like you get like people arguing about the borders or about same-sex marriage or things like that. Like they're always the loudest voices. And if you actually get kind of scolded if you're a Catholic and you talk, you try to apply church teaching to politics. It's like, whoa, separation of church and state. But then if you're on the left side of that, then they're like, oh no, this is human rights. Like everyone should be doing this, human dignity. And like the greatest example of this is fiducia supplicans. So we got a little church corner here.
Ooh.
So we just, oh my gosh, this makes me so mad. But we had a priest in Chicago cosplaying a wedding. Okay, we have the video. I don't even know if we need to play it with audio, but it's just it's in
Oh, man.
DePaul. What are we doing here? Presiding over a quote unquote wedding between two.
Yeah, so for the
women.
audio, we've got two women with the priest. One of them's in a white dress, one of them's in a black tux with a hat. And the priest is very jolly. They're clearly in a Catholic church, and he reads the marriage rite to them, and they make their promises. And this is, and defenders of fiducia supplicans will say, this is violating everything that fiducia said, because it said you can't make it look like a wedding. It has to be really short. It has to be spur of the moment. It can't be planned. And this was clearly violating
planned.
all of those clarifications that the DDF put out about fiducia. At the same time, is anyone surprised that fiducia supplicans is being used to also justify what's happening in this church right now?
Do you think
And
Pope Francis would be even upset at what's going on here privately?
I don't want to speculate at this point. I'm a little, yeah, but
Yeah,
would he
I
be
won't speculate.
disappointed? Maybe, I don't know. But
The Cardinal of Chicago
yeah.
probably doesn't care.
No, it was under
I don't know,
selection.
like
Oh, Supich is not gonna. I mean, he'll close
No.
down St. John Cantius and the traditional Latin Mass, but this, I haven't seen anything condemning what happened here or the priests being
yet
upgraded.
to hear.
I
And
mean,
we
it would
won't.
have to be the appointment of Supich to Chicago, the greatest disappointment. I mean, that's even worse than Gregory. I mean, that's a
Not
tough one,
surprising, but disappointing. Wasn't
Or the
wasn't
hat to McElroy.
He was Theodore. He was Theodore
Ooh.
McCarrick Associated, right? Supich.
Yeah, he was in the McCarrick.
Well,
I think
McCarrick
he was
was on the committee that
recommended.
promoted
He was
everybody.
recommended by McCarrick for
Yeah, I don't know how
Chicago.
closely they're aligned, but whatever.
Yeah, that should be enough.
Those
for
are rough
firing.
times.
So,
Yeah.
so if we continue though, I think people have brought this up, and I think it's worth offering clarification on. So Pope Francis came out with Dignitas Infinita, and spoke very strongly on a few things. Surrogacy being one.
We
of
were
them.
excited about it. We
Yeah, it
are
was like
excited
kind of
about
a-
Dignitas Infinita.
Totally.
Very nice.
Really, really good on surrogacy. Really good on gender ideology. Good depends, because you can criticize the Pope if you're on the left. Apparently, if you criticize the Pope and you're not on that camp, then that is schismatic and whatever. But Sister Jeannie Gramick,
It's almost like they're liars.
we saw a lot of criticism from certain organizations, New Ways Ministry,
Very disappointed in the Pope.
Outreach,
Yep.
Father James Martin. They all were very public in their displeasure at the language used, saying it was dehumanizing to trans people. So it's okay to criticize if you're in those camps, I guess. So
Mm.
I
basically,
don't know, someone who mutilates their genitals is being dehumanizing to themselves. Sorry.
so we have
I
an
don't
update
need
on
any
it. I'm not going to keep teasing. We have an update on it. Erica, if you want to run down what happened with Sister
Yeah.
Jeannie Gramick.
Sure. So Sister Jeannie Gramick, she was so upset by Dignitas Infinita that she wrote a letter to the Pope. And this week, she published an article where she shared Pope Francis's response to her letter of mourning and disappointment that she had sent him. And she had told the Pope, she quotes herself first. She says, The Dignitas Infinita, quote, is harming the transgender people I love, end quote, because of its rejection of gender ideology. And she says then in this article, she says, the Pope responded to me. And I'm just going to read, she had a block quote that the Pope wrote back to her. And this is a study in the leftist art of distortion, what she does with this.
Totally.
So this is really important. She says, the Pope wrote back to me, quote, gender ideology is something other than homosexual or transsexual people. This should not be a hard distinction for anyone. Sorry, that was me. Pope continues, gender ideology makes everyone equal without respect for personal history. I understand, the Pope says, the concern about Dignitas Infinita, but it refers not to transgender people, but to gender ideology, which nullifies differences. And he means the difference between male and female as God created us. Transgender people must be accepted and integrated into society. Oh, and that's the sentence that she latches onto. So then she says she wrote back to him again and explained to him that he misunderstood what gender ideology meant. He's using gender ideology wrong. Grammar issue there. It's the opposite of what she says. And she concludes, let's say it as loudly as we can. Pope Francis does not want us to nullify differences. He wants us to respect personal history, which means, she concludes, these are my words, but this is the conclusion of the article, the Pope is actually saying that we should help them medically transition through surgeries and hormone drugs. Early in her article, she talks about how the gender ideology actually means helping people who were born in the wrong body, which is totally the opposite of what Dignitas Infinita says, is helping them to then make their body through surgeries match the way they feel. So we're talking about castration, cutting off breasts. This is gross stuff.
She explicitly says this.
She explicitly says this. And then at the end of the article, she says, so you see, Pope Francis actually agrees with me. When he says transgender people must be accepted, he means they must be encouraged to take these measures to match their gender dysphoria.
And to clarify, she didn't put the entire letter. She just put a
No, she just
passage
said
that she
block
pulled
quotes,
out.
selections. This is an argument which essentially equates, this is from The Pillar, which did a great job analyzing this. Her argument essentially equates acceptance of transgender people, as advocated by Pope Francis, with acceptance of sex change surgeries, which both the Pope and the DDF have rejected in Dignitas Infinita. And this is, again, classic leftist James Martin tactics where you take something that someone says and it's just vague enough that you can make it match your own heretical view. And, Trent Horn was saying on the Crisis Point podcast this week, he was saying how he's really hesitant to use the word heretic to characterize people like Sister Gramick or Father James Martin, because they come and they say something like, I agree with church teaching. And I say that the life experience of these people means that practically, i.e. pastorally, we should be encouraging them and allowing them to do all these things, like get married in a Catholic church or have these sex change surgery. And I'm not as hesitant to use the word heresy, I have to say. I think even if it's not technically heretical, it's practically heretical, which is what we saw full circle back at that lesbian wedding. Yeah, exactly. It's like Benedict XVI had practical atheism. He's like, people in the West will still say, I'm spiritual, I believe in God, but practically they live like atheists. Well, Sister Jean Gramick, she'll say, I'm not a heretic. I support church teaching. Father James Martin says, I don't disagree with church teaching, but practically, pastorally, he's a heretic. And that's what we're seeing here with the Sister Jean Gramick article. Really, and of course, all the headlines are Pope says on the secular meeting, Pope reaffirms New Ways ministry.
Maybe don't send a letter to a political activist that pretends that she's a Catholic nun. Maybe the letter could have been simple: repent and believe in the gospel.
There you
Francis. Go. That would have been simple.
There's really just one answer to this whole scenario: repent. The end is near, because everyone's old.
Also,
but you know what though? I'm glad though. At Catholic Vote, we have the Catholic Accountability Project, and we try to hold Catholic organizations accountable. And we have a report at our Catholic Accountability Project on this organization, New Ways Ministry. This is critical. We have members of the Catholic Vote's Champion Club that help us finance the important research on this kind of stuff. we did the research on New Ways Ministry and Sister Gramick and all the kind of ways that she's trying to promote, heretical teachings and try to undermine the Catholic Church's wonderful teachings actually on human dignity. And this latest stunt she pulled is just one more thing that she's done. She's got a long history of it. There we have it on the screen for people watching on YouTube. Rainbow wolves, perfectly accurate. Wolves dressed up as rainbows. Let me tell you what, this report is great, and it goes down and explains exactly what New Age Ministry is all about. And I encourage folks to go to Catholic Vote, check it out, the Rainbow Wolves report.
And how it became so influential in the church. People will be like, how did they even get to be a thing? But the report explains exactly how they got into the very highest bastions of the Vatican, of the Curia. So check it out.
Yeah, I mean, if there's Catholics who are railing against church teachings, the media love them. Oh, you're totally pro-gay? Oh,
They're an
you're
AP
pro-abortion?
darling.
We love you, yeah.
You'll get a glowing profile if
You
you
get a mega
pro-trans funeral in St. Patrick's. But yes, you can find that at catholicvote.org/cap. First off, shout out to Belmont Abbey College. We have someone coming in from Charlotte, another great college as well. So
It
shout
is a
out
good
to
school.
Check it out.
person.
Cool.
I love Belmont
So
Abbey.
Tom
as well.
says I need to get my head covered with a Benedictine beanie, or maybe it's a Belmont Abbey. Send me more hats.
Send the
Everyone
merch.
says
You got to
my-
cover the
cover
egg.
this ugly head. See, look at this. I got the University of
what's
Mary
that?
hat.
Well, Josh, do you know the lore behind the Benedictine little cap?
I do. Actually, I listened to the interview they had. I mean, this is a
Okay,
tradition
yeah.
on many campuses across the country, and then it kind of lost favor, but Benedictine College kept it. I don't want to give it away to our audience. I watched your whole interview with.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
good.
everyone
Yeah,
should
it's
go
good.
watch it. Yeah.
The tradition it actually kept my wife from going to Benedictine College. She was so scared of it. So, congratulations to me and Ave Maria. Sorry, Benedictine. You might want to rethink it, but no, it's a great tradition. If you want to check that one out, that's the Stephen Minnis interview I did on the Loopcast. So we move on now to the Twilight Zone. Josh, you're up first.
Well, before I get to my Twilight Zone thing, I just want to new poll that came out by Pew Research poll. It was just released this week, and just to give a little context, back in the 2020 election, Trump led Biden narrowly. He only won a sliver more of Catholics. It was 50 to 49%. And so Pew Research poll, they interviewed Catholics again. Hey, if the election were held today, who would you go for, Trump or Biden? And instead of being 50-49, really close like it was in 2020, now 55% of Catholics say they would back Trump, where 45% said they'd go for Biden. So going from a 1-point margin to a 10-point margin, that's a big switch. So I think that's part of the reason why you see the poll numbers in states like Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania swinging back to Trump. So anyway, if you dial into this poll too, it's kind of interesting. Usually you're thinking, oh, white Catholics, but Hispanic Catholics, that's definitely got Biden, because in fact, Hispanic Catholics backed Joe Biden in the 2020 election, 67 to 26%. That's a mass, and that's not an insignificant number of Catholics, right? Hispanic Catholics are a lot of Catholics.
Second most, right?
That's 2 to 1, right? So what is it now? That same poll showed amongst Hispanic Catholics, Biden was leading. Instead of leading by over 40 points, now he's leading by 2 points,
Whoa.
49 to 47.
That's
That is a
shocking.
major groundswell.
That is shocking. Yeah.
So I think that is very noteworthy, and we're going to cover that in the loop this week. We got reporters working on that, but I think that was some eye-popping statistics there.
But
So-
not Twilight Zone, because that makes sense.
Well, I
Well
just
said.
wanted to make sure I shared it with our audience. It was like woo.
Oh yeah,
kind of
no,
amazing.
that's fair. I'm
So-
glad you didn't put in the Twilight Zone because it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And now,
No, the Twilight Zone for me is, of course, there's so many controversies in politics that are kind of dumb, okay? And so, like, for example, to me, if you asked me a year ago, do you want Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, to be,
we're gonna talk about this.
vice president? No, I don't. And the reason I'd say that is because she's horrible on trans issues. I don't trust her. She kind of, at the end,
Well, she vetoed.
She's squishy.
yeah, she vetoed a bill.
Yeah.
She kind of came around a little bit at the end, but you know what?
Too late.
I just don't trust her. Okay, that's where I'm at. All right. But no, the reason why she's, thrown in the doghouse this week is because she wrote a memoir in which she talked about her dog, and her dog was unruly. So she threw her dog in a gravel pit and shot it in the head and killed the dog. And people are going kind of crazy. And I thought this was like kind of a goofy story. Like, of all the things to get upset about, but people love their dogs and their cats, man. Let me tell you what. Johnny Carson would always say, anytime he said a joke about a dog or whatever, he'd get a stack of mail this high.
He'd get a 3-star review. That's what he would get.
I mean, it's just kind of, really, this is the thing. I mean, it's kind of, maybe she should have used a trainer or whatever, or maybe this isn't the way to do it. But like, I don't know. I had a dog that bit a mailman. So I was like, sorry, it's time to go.
Right, but she just seemed a little too excited about shooting the dog.
Yeah.
I
Talking
guess,
about
and
how
I
much she
think
hated it.
that if the concern is that she was just doing this to show how tough she was, as if she was auditioning for vice president, then it's kind of lame. But this, to me, it just seems like now. Did you hear this? There's now a bipartisan.
Oh, don't like that word.
Dog lovers caucus and Nancy Mace, our least favorite Republican.
Nancy.
She is horrible. She's the one that was cracking jokes about sex at a prayer breakfast.
Not the most serious one.
Yeah, it was.
She is. I gotta bite my lip to some of the things I like to say about. She drives me crazy. But here are these congressmen, these noble congressmen. Any attempt for congressmen to try to make themselves look like the savior, and this is a dog lovers caucus. Give me a break. Just shut up.
But they're perfectly fine with killing unborn baby humans. They're just like, how dare you shoot a dog?
Right, and
But you should be
Nancy
able to
Mace is
dismember
pro-abortion.
children.
She's a
Right, but
pro-abortion
Josh,
Republican.
Yeah.
So, to your point, this all is very much a distraction. And she followed this up by saying, maybe if I were a better politician, I wouldn't be telling this story in this book. And
Yes.
that's the understatement of the century. Her political
Yeah.
instincts might not even exist. I don't understand what could
Did you see
possibly-
she also in the book claims that she had a one-on-one meeting with Kim Jong-un?
That's what I was
from
gonna
North
say.
Korea.
She
And
claimed
it turns out everyone who she names who was in the room when they got together, they're all like, no, that never
Don't think that happened.
So
that,
yeah,
that-
and
like this is not even the worst thing. She claimed she met with Kim Jong-un and lied about that.
and that was a lie.
Yeah,
and
only
she was
President
even
Biden
smart,
should
like-
do those kind of lies.
Yeah,
anyway.
only Biden can get away with
Exactly.
lying, and
Right, because he's senile.
right.
So everyone's
and
like,
then,
well,
and
he
then
didn't
they'll get
lie.
mad at the people accusing him of lying. Like,
Well, wait a
listen,
minute
man.
now. It was before he went senile. He would tell these lies. He
That's
said he was at
true.
the top of his law class. It's like no, you weren't.
We
You're
could
like
do
the
an
You were
entire
in the bottom
episode.
20% of your law class. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do an entire episode on Biden lies.
Oh,
Like he's
yeah.
a prolific liar. Like his entire career.
We don't have the time
He,
for
he
that.
lost his first presidential bid because he completely plagiarized an entire speech.
Yep. I remember.
Doesn't get worse than that, dude.
That was back when the electorate actually cared.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
kidding.
right.
I remember in 1988 that story.
Do you remember? So did you watch the speech and you're like, I know that he's plagiarizing it?
No,
He was-
I remember
he
the
was-
fallout though. I
Okay.
remember that. Like, I'm like, wait, what? Someone quit because he got plagiarized? I rember that. Yeah, that was.
That would have been
only
worthy
like
of more
11.
than a 3-star review. If you would have watched in real time and then like, oh, I know he's plagiarizing this guy, you all win the ultimate political trivia. Because you were young too at that point. Anyway,
Oh.
Erica,
All right,
Your Twilight
we're back
Zone.
to Scotland. I mean, we had our Braveheart reference with the trash can shields of the phalanx there at UCLA. This is a little obscure, but I'm a little obsessed with Scottish like geopolitical influence, which is nil. But Humza
Wait,
Yousaf, I know.
Yeah, you gotta-
All right,
wait a
this
second.
is
What
a
it-
little,
what it-
but it's funny. Like this is.
I'm
this
calling
is-
BS on that. That was,
Yeah, wait.
I
Is-
love my Scots.
you
Hey, they're
actually, is this
national-
actually legitimately? You follow
I love
Scottish
Scot-
politics?
I do follow Scottish politics because they're crazy and it's
Okay.
cold. And I'm waiting for William Wallace to reincarnate. He's like King Arthur. He's gonna come back, the once and future William Wallace. So I'm
Scottish
watching.
QAnon.
I'm waiting for it, and this might be his opportunity. So after 400 days in office, so just over a year, Humza Yousaf, Scotland's first minister, leader of the Scottish National Party, which is, for those of you not in the know, is way leftist. He resigned because of this huge disagreement. There's two leftist parties in Scotland, the SNP, of which he is a member, and the Green Party. You can imagine what they stand for. And it blew up. Humza Yousaf is the guy, you may have seen this when he took office about a year ago. He gave a speech from the floor of Scottish Parliament saying that he was disturbed because as a brown person, he noticed that Scottish leadership is too white. And he goes through, he's like the veterinary officer, white, the chief of executive something, white, the chief of trade, white, the chief of executor of the exchequer, white. And you're like, yeah, because it's Scotland.
He's not
But
a fan of
anyway,
White Boy Summer.
He doesn't like white. He probably wrote in, that was a burner account.
Yeah,
he was upset with your
not
White
a
Boy
big fan of
Summer.
White Boy Summer.
But the main issue that led to his coalition's deterioration, this is how radical these people are. They split, they ousted him because of his failure to lead Scotland to its climate targets, and because of his failure to stop a bill that ended gender affirming care, in quotes, for minors. So here was what the climate goal was. Humza Yousaf had promised to help Scotland pare back its emissions of planet-heating greenhouse gases by 75% by 2030 compared to 1990. All right. In order to do that, you would have had to halve the population of Scotland. So basically, he failed to kill off half of the population in order to reach this climate
I know
goal.
which parts of the population he would kill off too.
Yeah, we definitely know. And this is, again, just the ridiculous levels of these United Kingdom. Really, it's the UN climate goals. It was just on show here. So he was set up for failure, but he failed to meet this goal. So he is out. What does this mean for climate change? This is going to have a devastating impact on the world's emissions level, because estimates from the Scottish government, Scotland accounts for about 10% of all the UK's emissions, meaning that Scotland accounts for less than 0.1% of worldwide emissions. So this whole fallout, we are definitely all going to boil. We're going to burn up because Humza Yousaf is out. He failed.
I think we brushed over this. So, sorry, he was upset that leadership in Scotland was white.
Yes.
Isn't that a little bit like Japan being mad that leadership in Japan is Japanese?
Yeah, it's about the same.
Like, does he not know Scottish people are white?
And what's wrong with that? Like, I mean, like this idea, like the underlying assumption is like to be white is bad. Like, no.
And you,
Yeah.
an
It's
entire
not
country allowed
bad.
someone to
In
basically
fact, it's
guilt
kinda
trip them all.
good.
Yeah, like an entire country
Yeah.
allowed someone to come in and guilt trip them all for being themselves to a point where he was appointed to leadership.
Exactly.
Yep, that's pretty much what happened.
That is so bizarre.
Now wait a
And
minute.
now
So,
he's
but he
out.
wasn't. You're saying that he was the Scottish Nationalist Party. They're the ones that want independence, I think, right?
Scottish National Party, no, he does not want independence. He does not.
And then
There
there's
was
the
a
Green
different-
Party.
That was a
the
test
Green
and you
Party.
passed.
You know what? They need
Yeah.
a symbol for these parties, like because
Like
know
the
in the United
unicorn?
States we have that's their national animal, right? Scotland.
Yeah,
What?
it's the only nation on earth whose national animal is fictional.
No,
Which is also
way.
why I love Scotland. Yep. What about the
No.
Loch Ness Monster? They could have a big green Nessie on there.
That should be for the no. You know what it should be for the Green Party?
Okay.
A watermelon.
A watermelon.
Why?
It's green on the outside, but communist red on the inside. It'd be perfect.
It would be perfect. Let's go
Or
with
I mean, the
watermelon.
unicorn feels
I got that,
appropriate
I think,
because
from
it
Russell
doesn't
Limbaugh.
exist. So
That's right. That's right. So if there's a
Wow.
vacancy, we need another William Wallace to come and charge the gates. Stick it
And
to the
let me
man.
just say,
Come on.
Josh, you were trying to make fun of Erica for a second there. You know quite a bit about Scottish politics, apparently, if you're asking these questions. So let's not be throwing around.
Actually, it's funny though because you mentioned the lies and the plagiarism of Biden. He actually cribbed that from a UK politician. That was how that whole scandal broke. That was Neil Kinnock. He was not
Full
Scottish,
circle.
but he was the guy that lost that landslide election against Thatcher back in '83.
Okay.
That is some trivia.
That is some trivia.
That is some trivia. All right. Finish
All
us
right,
off, Pogo.
I'm finishing this off. My turn. No, I have not lost my obsession with Boeing. So update to the story. And guys, Tom, other Tom, I need to borrow your tinfoil hat. A second Boeing whistleblower has died after a mysterious
Whoa,
short
for real?
illness. Right before they're supposed to have these court dates.
Oh my gosh.
This guy Joshua
Why don't they
Dean-
record depositions on this?
I know.
Well, I think what happened with the first guy was he was in, I want to say it was Charlotte or Charlottesville, and he
That
was
was
in
only,
there.
like- Yeah.
He
He
was
was where he
recording
needed to
depositions.
testify.
Right, and he was
And he-
talking to lawyers, and then he died in his car. Like he mysteriously died in his car.
At
And
the
then-
hotel.
Alleged suicide.
Right, at the
Right.
hotel that he was at because he was in town for all that stuff. And then
It's like,
this
does Hillary
is the
Clinton
second
own
guy.
stock in Boeing? What is going on?
I have no idea. But Joshua Dean, he was a whistleblower who warned of the manufacturing defects in the plane maker's 737 MAX, died after a short mystery illness. They don't even know what it is, but they said it was fast and it was aggressive. Second Boeing whistleblower to die this year. So he was a former quality auditor at Boeing supplier. Spirit Aerosystems filed a complaint with the FAA alleging serious and gross misconduct by senior quality management of the 737 production line. So he was fired, and then he countersued with the Labor Department, saying that he was intentionally fired for being a whistleblower. So he's like in the belly of the beast for sure. And this now being the second one who's died has definitely brought up a lot of questions like, what are we doing here, Boeing? Like,
So what did they say he died of?
they said a mysterious illness, a mysterious short illness is all we know.
I think the illnesses testify against us.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to
Scares me,
drive
man.
to the all staff meeting this summer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't get on a 737 MAX, but yeah, it's not looking good for Boeing.
I that's not a
CEO
joke though.
stepped
I
in.
look up on my
Scary.
flights. My daughter even was like, "Hey, we're flying. What are you worried?" I'm like,
What kind of
"Dude, I
plane is it,
check
Dad?"
Before
Yeah.
every flight, what bird we're getting on. Let me
It is
tell you
not a
what.
Boeing.
And it's going to be an Airbus. Yeah.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm
All
not
right.
done off that beat. I will give you guys more updates because my two main obsessions are Boeing whistleblowers and Catherine Ham, the CEO of NPR. Those are the big two.
Yeah, we need to talk about her.
But-
Teaser for next week.
We get to send you guys off to a great weekend. Really looking forward to it. If you want to help out the program, you can like this episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, or you can send us a review. And if you want to leave us 3 stars and leave a like kind of a backhanded compliment, we'll take those. 3-star
We
reviews.
will take
could be
those,
the new
especially if
norm.
you say good things about me.
Yes, exclusively if they're good about Mercer. If they're good about Mercer, then we'll accept them. Anyone else, no. We need 5 stars for the other people. So, but we surpassed 500 reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thank you guys. I did ask for that specifically. Thank you. If you want to leave another review, Spotify, you can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. I appreciate that. And then, yeah, the best thing you can do, though, is pray for us. We're praying for you. And we hope you guys have a great weekend. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.